The 124 Spider revives a classic name from Fiat's back catalogue and adds some Italian glamour to the affordable roadster segment of the sports car market. This car shares much with its closest Japanese rival, but a lively 1.4-litre turbocharged engine delivers a unique feel that provides this model with much of its special character.
This Fiat may share a lot of its underpinnings with a Mazda MX-5, but a crucial difference lies beneath the bonnet. Here, the Italian has a zesty turbocharged 1.4-litre engine that delivers 140 bhp and drives through a 6-speed manual gearbox. Make the most of its power, along with 240 newton-meters of shove, and it cracks 0 to 62 miles an hour in 7.5 seconds before heading on to a top speed of 134 miles an hour. And that's brisk enough by today's standards and feels even swifter thanks to the open-top experience you get when the roof's lowered. Use the 124 with a bit more restraint and it can give a combined consumption of 44.1 mpg and 148 grams per kilometre of carbon dioxide output. The more potent 170 bhp Abarth model produces the same emissions when coupled to its 6-ratio manual box, but economy drops to 33.2 mpg. With both variants, a 6-speed paddle shift auto gearbox is optional. The extra pulling power of that turbo engine gives this Fiat a torquier, more relaxed feel than you get from its more urgently orientated, normally aspirated MX-5 design stablemate. And the Italians have also changed the springs, the dampers, the anti-roll bars and the steering calibration in a further effort to give this car a shift in character. The end result is probably closer to the kind of authentic 60s sports car feel that Fiat was setting out to replicate. It's certainly closer to the feel of an original 124 Spider. What's not up for debate is the fact this roadster is huge fun to drive, with precise steering and a lovely snappy gearbox, although ride quality can get quite easily unsettled on poorer surfaces. Lowering the roof is easy and quick, so you can enjoy the open air all the way to motorway speeds without being blown about in the cockpit. Raise the hood and the Fiat is actually acceptably refined, so you can listen to the stereo or chat to your passenger without the risk of impending deafness. It's from the side that you appreciate the extra length that Fiat has added to this design. It's 139mm longer than an MX-5. Now that might not sound much, but in the metal, the change is enough to visually reposition this car, to the point where, at first glance, you might well see it less as a dinky, nippy little MX-5 rival and perhaps more as a competitor for something like a Mercedes SLC or a BMW Z4. Key visual tweaks include these prominent lower side skirts and the swallowtail rear haunches that directly reference the previous model. It's perhaps more significant, though, to note that the alterations made have spoiled the standard MX-5 design's perfect 50-50 weight distribution. Time to take a seat inside. Now, after all the changes made to the panelwork and the engine bay, it's something of a shock to find the cockpit carried over from the MX-5's virtually unchanged. There's a Fiat badge on the steering wheel, revised door panels and softer touch, plusher material on top of the dash. Otherwise, everything you see is exactly as it would be in the Mazda. Now, we can understand why purists might object to that, but then a purist is unlikely to be considering an Italian sports car built in Hiroshima anyway. Pragmatically speaking, there was really no need to change an interior that Mazda had spent years perfecting, offering as it does a driving position tailored to fit you like a glove. We should also talk about the hood, another feature that was unnecessary for Fiat to redesign in creating this car. It isn't electrically operated and it doesn't need to be because the opening and closing process is so simple. You just reach behind you and pull up with one hand, and it's a process that only takes a few seconds and requires activation of a simple roof rail clip-on catch. One thing the roof doesn't do is compromise your boot space, which is just as well, since, as with any roadster, there really isn't very much of it. The extra length of this Fiat has freed up 10 litres more trunk room than you get in an MX-5, so that's 140 litres in total, but that's not going to make very much difference to the limited amount you can carry. If that is a problem, then go and buy a hot hatch. It's easy to be critical when it comes to platform sharing, but it's an approach that's always been hard to get away from. The original 124 Spider was based on a humble 124 saloon, just as the Mark I model MX-5 borrowed plenty from a Mazda 323 hatch. So why shouldn't this modern-era Fiat sports car share its fundamentals with a more credible donor model, its Japanese arch-rival? After all, if the Touring brand had developed this car from scratch, we would all have compared every nut and bolt of it to an MX-5 anyway. Ultimately, every love story has its own soundtrack. If this is yours, then we think you'll like this car very much.